Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode. This video is going to be about Bill Greening. As many of you probably know, if you're in the doll universe at all, Mattel made a genius decision to fire one of their most iconic designers, Bill Greening. He was an employee at Barbie for 26 years, and he was also an avid Barbie collector. He was the kind of designer that gave the fans what they wanted, which, Mattel is generally sort of lacking in, so letting him go seems short-sighted and like a huge mistake. And it was definitely for financial purposes, because they want to make a $200 million profit. Good for them. But I personally can't wait for AI Millie, because she's going to be even more soulless and lifeless than she already is. Now, I could do a video where I talk about Bill Greening. I could talk about him at length. I love talking about dolls, and I love railing against large companies because I can't stand when profit margins outweigh the customer base that's been loyal for years and years on end. But there's plenty of videos out there about that. I'm sure you've watched some of them. I'll link some really good ones that I quite liked down below. But I'm more of a crafty little fella. And when another crafty little fella, Amy Plays With Dolls, suggested that she might like to do a collaboration, I thought, I know, I have just the collab for you. So I hopped over to Instagram and I sent her a little message. And I said, I'd love to do a collab with you. Well, she also suggested many good collaboration subjects. If you like collabs, definitely stay tuned. We decided that it would be a good idea to do a collaboration where each of us picked a Bill Greening design and did a custom doll inspired by it. So that's what today's video is going to be. We're going to take a look at my process in creating a custom Barbie that's inspired by one of Bill Greening's iconic dolls. I'm also going to be sure to link Amy's video down below so you can check out her part of the collaboration. For my doll, of course, I chose a 60s inspired doll. Of course I did, because I love the 1960s fashion. I love the 1960s hair. The 1960s just does it for me real good. And if you didn't see my Styled by Design #3 video, you can go and watch that and see all of my personal 60s look. I'll certainly link that one down below. Also, the Barbie I chose was the Pop Life Barbie. I stan these, and I've stan them for quite a long time. When I first got into doll collecting as an adult around 2017, 2018, I had my eye on these. I was like, I want it. But the price was kind of high back then, nothing compared to what it was now. So I didn't buy them, and now the prices are completely outrageous, so I'll never ever have one, but it's definitely on my grail list. So I decided, why not use that doll as my inspiration for this project? Completely by accident, both me and Amy chose another Bill Greening doll to use as our base, and it happened to be the same doll. We used the Barbie Basics Carl. I thought she had kind of a 1960s look to her already, so I thought she would be the perfect subject to create the Pop Life inspired doll from. So what I decided to do for my doll was to make her an outfit inspired by the Pop Life doll, make her a wig inspired by the Pop Life hair, partially repaint her face, and I also decided to make her a pair of shoes. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to see the whole process, definitely stay tuned until the end when I'll finally reveal my Bill Greening Pop Life inspired custom. It's gonna be a wonderful time, so let's get started. I'm gonna be starting this process today with my wig. I'll need cling wrap, some hair. This is nylon hair from the Doll Planet. I had it lying around the house. It is low temp nylon, unfortunately. I have a finger protector to protect my hands from the heat, some mesh, and of course I'll need some scissors and a glue gun. And here's our victim for today, Miss Carl from the Barbie Basics collection. Oh, she doesn't look too happy about me chopping all of her hair off, but it must be done, so here we go. I start by cutting off the hair as close to the scalp as possible. I actually want to reuse this hair for another project, so I'm getting real close in there. This isn't completely necessary if you don't care about the hair very much, but it is much easier to pull the plugs out from the other side if the hair is short. And here's our bald Carl. That one's a hard one for me to say, and I'm just going to pull her head off so I can start working on just the head. Now I've dunked the head in boiling water to soften the vinyl and the hair inside the head, and I'm just using some tweezers to pull out the plugs from the other end. This is one of my least favorite parts of doll customizing because it's quite hard on the hands, and I'm generally sore for days afterwards. Once I've finally used all of my hand strength to scrape the plugs from the head holes, I begin the arduous task of removing what's left of the hair from inside the head. Amy uses a great technique where she uses the head like a syringe, and she puts some water in it and squeezes it out, but I decide to do it the hard way. Now it's time to make the wig cap, and I start by protecting the doll's head with some plastic, and then I'm going to wrap the mesh around the head. I find the tighter the fit with the mesh, the better the wig fits, and so I'm pulling that as tight as possible, and then I'm taking all the excess mesh and trying to move it forward onto the face. So the back of the mesh looks flat and the bulk of the mesh is in the front where I'm not going to be putting any glue. I'm securing that around the neck with a rubber band, and with a little finagling, I've got a nice base to start my wig with. Now this hot glue wig technique is something I traditionally use on ball jointed dolls, and I've never tried it on a fashion doll before. So enter everybody's favorite lab rat, Miss Millie. I tested the hot glue on her head and it did not melt her or burn her, so I guess we're good to go. This technique is actually quite simple. I just load up the head with hot glue, and then I take the tip of the hot glue gun and just smooth out the surface. Because she's a fashion doll, I want a particularly thin wig cap, so I'm real careful not to use too much glue, and I really get in there and try and smooth it out as best as I possibly can. If you watch a lot of doll customization videos, you'll know that people use a variety of different glues to make their wigs and their wig caps, but I find hot glue to be the most forgiving type of glue because you can always just reheat it and reposition things. And I'm not a particularly good wig maker, and I found that this is the best way for me to get the results that I'm looking for. So I drew on a hairline and removed the cap from the head, and now I'm just going to trim off the extra mesh up to the hairline. And here it is on the head. It's actually quite a well-fitting wig cap, one of my better wig caps. And for the hair, I had around the house that low-temp nylon, so I wanted to test it and make sure the hot glue wouldn't melt it. And here's my test weft, and it came out just fine, so let's keep going. And to make the wefts, I start with a little chunk of hair, and I try and even off the top as best as possible. Then I spread it out on my silicone mat, and then I take my glue gun and just add a little bit of glue to the top of the weft. I'm trying to make it flat and also cover all of the little hairs. And I use the tip of the glue gun to do that, and then I take my silicone fingertip and press it into the silicone mat, making a really nice flat weft. Then I'm going to flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other side. I really want to make sure all of the little hairs are captured inside the 2 layers of glue. And here's my weft. I'm just going to trim it up a little bit. Beautiful. And now lucky me, I only have to do that 20 to 30 more times. Now that I have my wefts all made, it's time to start making the wig. I have drawn on a dot where I want the part line to be, and I just start by literally melting the hot glue into the hot glue. So I melt the glue from the wefts into the glue on the wig cap. Then I take my little silicone finger protector and flatten out the glue as much as possible, ensuring I have a secure bond, and I just continue on this way until the wig is complete. But at this point, I'm sure you're wondering, but what kind of wig are you making? Well, as a self-proclaimed bad wig maker and poor hairstylist, of course I've chosen Vidal Sassoon's 5-point haircut, an iconic look from the 60s and technically extremely difficult haircut to do. And if it wasn't hard enough on human scale, I'm trying it in doll scale. This is bound to go great. Now for doll wigs, especially short haircuts, I find it easier to trim as you go. So I'm going to give this wig a preliminary haircut as I glue the wefts on, and then I'll tidy it up at the end. And then I repeat this process over and over again, gluing and cutting and gluing and cutting until I get to the part line. Then I boil set it down and wait for it to dry. While the wig is drying, let's start on some clothes. These are the fabrics we'll be using today. I thought it paid homage to the original Pop Life dress while adding my favorite color, Barbie Core Pink. For my pattern base today, I used this Barbie Basics Claudette dress, altering it only a little bit by slimming down the hemline for a more tailored fit. Now I make a real quick tights pattern by pinning the fabric onto the doll with a little bit of tension on it. And then I mark out my cut line with a marker. I unpin, cut that out, transfer it onto some paper, fold it in half to make sure it's even on both sides, add the seam allowance, then I pin it to my fabric, and I cut it out. And once I've cut all my pattern pieces out of fabric, it's time to sew it up. And all the pattern pieces sewed up pretty well. I ended up having to take about a ½ inch off of the tights, and I added too much seam allowance to the dress, so it was a little bit big in the back, but I was able to correct it. I also had some jewelry findings around my house that I made her a belt with. Now it's time to go back to the wig, and here's what she's looking like after her first boil set. Now I did decide to change the part line, moving it back a little bit, so I need to add some more wefts to the front. I'm not going to bore you with that, but here's how it turned out. It looks crazy. Of course it looks crazy. Wigs always look crazy until they're finished. And now for the part. This haircut has quite a circular part, so I'm just stabbing a circular hole through my wig cap. This is the part of the wig where things can go wrong, and of course, for me, it always does, and this wig is no exception. I start the process of the part by stabbing some wefts through that hole using some tweezers. I pull it through as best I can, and then on the underside of the wig melts the glue into the wig cap, just like I did on the top of the wig. And then came the massive struggle of getting the rest of the wefts in there. I had to turn off the camera and focus. And the panic mess, here it is. That's the mess that I made in trying to get this done. But here's what the part's looking like. I did set that again with a boil wash, and now I'm going to spray it down with water just to protect the hair so I can take my glue gun and mash that little hump down that's left over from creating the part line. I'm just going to give her one last little trim here before I set her and forget her forever. Just kidding, I don't forget her, and I spend a lot of time off camera trying to make this wig into what I want. But here's the final cut for now. Now it's time to work on her face, so I start by rejoining her head to her body. Stunning. She's so happy now, look at her. And then I spray the doll down with 2 layers of Mr. Super Clear in matte, waiting 20 minutes for it to dry. And then I start by drawing on a new hairline for our doll here. I was giving her the 5-point haircut by Vidal Sassoon, and she is missing 3 of the 5 points. I didn't know how else to do this in doll scale, so I decided I would just draw them on. It kind of ends up being a waste in the end, but like whatever. I wanted to be accurate. I'm using my kneaded eraser to soften up those lines I drew on, so I can fill it in with just little hair-like strokes, because I do want this to look like hair. And I just continue to do this until the color won't layer up anymore, and that's how I know I need to spray another layer of sealant. As for her face, this doll looks kind of 60s to me already, so the only thing I really want to do is add some big, thick, twiggy lashes to her bottom lashes. So that's what I'm doing here with my watercolor pencil in black. Just, you know, lengthening the lashes that she already has there and making them kind of thick and chunky. They're meant to look like they're drawn on because they are. This is when I realized she kind of looks like Sharon Tate, so I decided to give her some scruffy eyebrows like Sharon Tate had. That's the first layer done, so I'm going to spray her again and on to the second. So layer 2 is basically exactly the same thing as layer 1. My goal is just to get a better color payoff. So I'm adding some little hairs to her new hairline and also her eyebrows. And then I'm going in and darkening the lashes with the pencil to start. And then I go in with some paint to get a real cartoony look on those eyelashes, just like in the picture. And this is sped up 20 times, and look how slow I'm moving. Wow. Now it's cleanup time, and then I move on to layer 3, which is exactly the same as layer 2, so I won't bore you with it. Freshly dried from a layer of Mr. Super Clear Gloss for a more skin-like finish, and now she's getting her lipstick, which of course is a frosted lip. What 60s girl would be complete without a frosted lip? And to make this, I just mixed some of my Tamiya gloss with my Pearl X powder in Pearl White and apply that to the lips. And that's the completed face. I think she looks cute. Here's where I make the biggest mistake of this whole custom in trying to make a pair of shoes. I created a little pattern from some masking tape, and then I transferred the pattern onto some paper. I cut it out of Warbler, a medium that I'm not good at using, or don't really know how to use, and I start by warming it up. It's a thermoplastic, so when you warm it up, it gets soft, and then it will harden again to a hard plastic. And here I am, trying to use it as if it were fabric. I'm trying to put this together as if it were a sewing pattern, but I just keep trying to work with it. I keep trying to, put right sides together and then fold it back as you would with a sewing pattern, but I don't think this is how this medium actually works. I spent literally hours fumbling around with this material, trying to construct one single shoe, and I eventually do come up with 2 shoes. Are they similar? No. Are they what I wanted? No. Do they look good? Absolutely not. But I'm gonna leave you here with this footage of me struggling for a while, and then we'll look at some aesthetic shots of me painting the shoes, and then, of course, the final disastrous result. And to paint this monstrosity, I'm just using some watered down acrylic paint. There's a chunk of something in it, it's probably hair. Just pick that out. I'm just looking for nice thin layers of paint to try and make them look as good as possible. They're not going to look good, spoiler alert, because they're not good. But that's okay, we all make mistakes, failed experiment, whoopsie poopsie. There's no way she's not wearing them because I spent so much time making them. But all I can do here is apologize to Bill Greening. This isn't really the quality of work I wanted to put into a doll that I'm tributing to him. And as a great woman once said, here's what you were trying to make. Show us what you made.
Oh my God!
Nailed it! Now it's time to get our girl dressed. fresh from the salon, shopping on Carnaby Street, gotta accessorize. And with boots made for walking, this tribute to Bill Greening's Pop Life Barbie is now complete. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the way she turned out. I quite like her dress and accessories. Her wig, I mean, it didn't get as flat as I wanted it to, and I had a really hard time styling it because of the type of nylon it was. And the boots are an absolute travesty, and I don't know why I continue to focus on them. But I had a lot of fun making her, and she's certainly going to be displayed prominently with my Styled by Design number 3 doll by Bill Greening. So I certainly hope you enjoyed seeing this customization process. If you enjoyed my custom, make sure you go over to Amy's channel and check her video out. Of course, it will be linked down below. And if you enjoyed watching me make this custom doll, please like the video. And if you want to see more customs and collabs from me, make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell notification so you don't miss a thing. And I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful time. Goodbye!